try to. Woohoo! My voice does not go very high. So, celebration, success. That is the subject of today's video. Hello, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I am an author, robot, writer, creator of things, and today we are talking about success. What is success in writing? What are different types of success in writing? And how do you achieve success in writing? What spurred on this video for me is that I always constantly, in different forums and different places where writers gather, there's always somebody around asking, are you a successful author, or are you a successful writer, or what does success mean to you? Because the comments, when you see are you a successful author, are always filled with different opinions, and often they're filled with, well, being successful is very, very personal, which it is. That is really the bottom line of what is success. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But let's first talk about measurable successes, because that's usually what most people who are asking the question are looking for. And there are different ways to measure success. There's monetary measure, there's reputation, there's follower count in some cases. So let's go over a couple of different. And so in looking at this subject, I've discovered at least 6 very distinct manners in which you can find measurable success in writing. And then we'll package up how to figure out what success is. But what we're talking about today is kind of different paths forward in being an author. Because there's not just one way to be an author, and there technically is no correct way to be an author. It just depends on the kind of author you want to be. So we're going to talk about the different types of authors you can be, and then we'll talk about what success is. That's really where we're at. Now, no, all of these are just things that I've noticed. So it's not a science, it's just perspective and observation. So type number 1 is the ghost author. And this is the author who hires other people to write their books, hires other people to edit their books. Perhaps they edit their own stuff that they have commissioned, but you can also just edit and do very little to no work on that book, and then you post it. And so when you're hiring somebody else to write for you, or more than one person to write for you, then you don't have to, you can have a constant stream of stuff releasing. What this will do is it will build your brand name quickly, it will build your backlog quickly, and depending on how quickly you release your new books, you will constantly have your name in the new release column on major sellers, including and especially Amazon. And this gives you more chances of exposure to new readers who are looking for something in a certain genre. I ran across this recently about a week or 2 ago, and I saw an author saying they make $6,000 a month before expenses, and then it's like $3,000 to $4,000 a month after paying expenses, because they have 69 romance novels on the market, and all of which had been commissioned. So they didn't write it, or all of them had been ghostwritten. They didn't write any of their own, and their goal was to have one release every month. This constantly puts their name at the top of the new release list, or in the new release list. So those looking for romance in their niche genre are constantly going to see this person's name. Now, with the benefit of you having a backlog, you being constantly released, this gives readers who, if they don't hate your book, they'll go back and buy more from you, which gives you the opportunity to sell more books. That's one of the biggest benefits of having a backlog is that they say your best marketing tool is the other books that you've written. So, like, the more books that you write, the more opportunities you give yourself to be discovered, and if readers like that book, they generally will go and buy more books by you. I can say that because I have done that, especially with Bret Easton Ellis and George Saunders, though I've kind of distancing myself from George Saunders. I am not as much into that work anymore. But I digress. So that's path number 1. Path number 2 is kind of like path number 1, except you have more creative input and you're more involved in the process. And this is what was referred to me as the 20/50. So 20/50 is if you have 20 different books, right? Just 20 individual books, and you sell at least one a day of those 20 different, then you'll make a minimum of $50,000. Now, what did the last path say? The more books you have in the market, the better chance you have of selling them, and then you'll have a backlog, and people will go through your backlog and purchase all these books. So the difference between the 20/50 rule is kind of like the ghostwriter rule, where you just get a bunch of stuff out there on the market, and you pick your niche, and you get it out there. Except the 2050 rule writes their own books instead of hiring a ghostwriter. So the 2050 may not get a new book out every month. It just depends on how quickly they work, how much editing they do, that. But the goal is then to just get at least 20 books out on the market and then push those. And they are self-written. They aren't ghost-written. Another author path is to be somebody who pens the epic series, the epic fantasy. So you've got the people who are known for the world that they've created, and that is what they have done. Think of J.K. Rowling. Think of Tolkien. Think of Tolkien. Think of The Hunger Games. I know that one's switching from author name to book series, but whatever. Think of just the people who became known for their series. Even Stephanie Meyer got known for Twilight, as opposed to, flooding the market with a million different stories or doing something else. She became known for her series, and it was the series specifically that sold all of her other books. So that is another path for an author. And is it any more valid, or is it more or less valid than 2050? It depends on you. We'll come back to that. Another path for authors is the unique standalone novel, but you're selling your voice and perspective, not necessarily the characters. So in this case, I'm thinking of people like Bret Easton Ellis, who, he doesn't write series, he writes individual novels. But you go to his novels and you get his unique perspective. The same can be said about Marquise de Sade. The same can be said about so many other authors. I have most of my novels over there. I think all of my novels on my shelf over there are standalones because I just don't prefer series. I very rarely read series. But at that point, then you're going there for the author's voice and the author's perspective, maybe the author's philosophy if that ends up being in the story, and not necessarily for the characters. So I'm reading Bret Easton Ellis because I like his snappy dialogue. I like his perspective on... He does satire on like the rich and famous and the nihilistic side of humanity and that sort of thing. And so I go to his work for his lampooning and satirization of that society. Whereas you're going to go to Harry Potter not for J.K. Rowling's voice, but for the story of Harry and Hermione and the ginger. Ron. Sorry. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. I just said I don't read series. But so you can can be your path, is to do individual stories instead of a super long series. Another path for authorship is to start by writing fan fiction, and a lot of people write fan fiction. Wattpad is a very well-known online area that is mostly populated with fan fiction, and I feel like it's always been mostly populated with fan fiction, but I don't know. A couple years ago, it was all like One Direction fan fiction, and now it's all K-pop fan fiction with some Harry Styles. But as mentioned in the dispute with the Omegaverse, a lot of people actually get started by writing fan fiction, and then they do this thing that's called scrubbing off the serials, where they remove the names of the characters who were not theirs and replace them with original character names, kind of blurring anything that would connect it to the thing that it was fan fiction of, and then it becomes original. Now, the way that you enter into authorship with this is that you've built your fan base from somebody else's fan base, and then when you make it live, that fan base usually follows you over. So 50 Shades of Grey is an example of shaving off the serials, as it started out as Twilight fan fiction. The author of 50 Shades of Grey chose something that was popular at that time, found the fans of it, found the fan base of it, wrote something for it, and then scrubbed off the serials and made something of her own, and it became a path for her own success. Sixth path that you can take as an author is to find your super strange, weird niche and just play the heck into it. A couple of years ago, I did a video on Chuck Tingle, and he just writes the most bizarre, outlandish erotica that you can think of. And I don't even feel like it's supposed to be sexy. I just think it's supposed to be weird, because you've got like donuts and the state of California stalking some buttholes and chocolate milk and dinosaurs and unicorns and a jet plane. Like, it's just all of this weird stuff. And he is known for writing this outlandish stuff. That is now his signature, and that's how he's built his audience. If anybody wants a gag gift, if anybody just really, really likes this really bizarre erotica, he has found his audience. And you can totally write something that is the most bizarre thing ever that you might think there's no audience for. If you continue to do it and that is your signature, you will find your niche audience, and it will be very powerful. Seventh path that I can think of is just doing it for fun and maybe posting it on a website that gets traffic. Think Tapas, think Wattpad, think Ink. What is it? Ink something? There are a couple of them that, and Any Story, there are a couple of websites out there that want you to just post serially, like chapters, a couple thousand words maybe, and you can start building a following on there. And some of them will pay you if you get enough people. Some of them let people offer you tips. Wattpad has, when I first saw Wattpad some years ago, there were no options for monetization, but now there are options for monetization and also to be paid by Wattpad. And also I think Wattpad has a path to publishing now too if you get popular enough. But you can just start posting on a blog, on random websites. Royal Roads is another one, and start building followers by just having your story be free and serial. And that's another way to get out there. So now I've mentioned 7 different paths to authorship, but how do you measure success? And at the beginning of this video, I said that success was something that's very personal and very subjective. So each of these paths is going to have a different measure of success, because the success is also dependent on what your goal is. In the case that you are a ghostwriter person over here, your goal is going to be to make money off of this. So that's fairly easy to measure. I think on the 2050, because 2050 is specifically referred to by the amount of money that you could make, that one is also going to be about success. Have the people who write the epic series or the big series might want their characters to be recognized for that series, or might want their characters to be unique and accepted for that. The people with the unique voices are going to possibly have a different goal than just making money. The people who do it for fun are going to have a different goal. The people who write fan fiction, and whether or not they scrub off the serials, might have a different goal. You could have somebody that writes fan fiction just for fun and they just build a following. So it all depends on what your personal goals are, what your success is. For me, I try to design small successes and big successes. So a big success would be, whoa, my book is turned into a movie and now I'm getting all of these deals and people want me to write more and I've made millions of dollars. That could be a big goal. But a small goal could be, I finished this book. A small goal could be, I have 500 followers on whatever social media platform I'm posting these things on. Small goals could be, I've made $200 from selling a book. I think it's important for any author, whether you're traditional or indie or small press, is that you need to set multiple goals. And those goals are more like goalposts, not like the end game. So you can measure your move forward. And rather than constantly feeling like you're falling short of whatever your mega goal is, you're slowly moving forward to the next goalpost and the next goalpost. Or the next checkpoint. Checkpoint might be a better phrase for it. I think I've said it all. I think I've said all that I've got to say on this. Is there are multiple paths to being an author. There's not one correct way to be an author. So at the end of the day, what does this mean? It means there's not one correct way to be an author. There's not one way to do it. There's not one success story. If we even look at those who have made it into writing for their job full time, their stories exploded. There are so many different stories. It's not just people who got published traditionally. There are stories like 50 Shades of Grey that started out as fan fiction and was free on the internet and turned into something else. There are those who started out with self-publishing, whose books took off, and they were contacted by publishers, and they took off even more. There are those who only do self or small publishing, and they have very devout and very large followings. There are and then there are those that are completely independent published, like if you think of stuff like Tapas or like Webtoons if you're a comic designer. And people make artists and storytellers make money on those platforms without being published through some kind of bigger platform. It's all internet publishing. So there are multiple ways that you can succeed, and there is no one single success story. There is no one path to go, or else you lose. You are really in control of your own destiny, forever how much you push. It is kind of like you don't know what's going to happen. So it's scary. But you're not doomed if you don't go one way or another. You create your own success by the way that you try, by the efforts you put in, and by the stories you tell. You are your own creator of success by defining what success is and taking the steps that you need in order to get to that finish line. So, in honor of that spirit, I would love to know what your goals are, what your successes have been, and what your future successes are for the coming future, for the near future, like maybe the rest of 2020, maybe 2021. What are you working on? What are you working toward? And what great things have you had happen to you? Because goodness knows we all need a little more positivity in the year of 2020. So, anyway, I've rambled enough. I would love to hear your successes, your goals, so we can work on them together. Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this sort of content, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. It lets me know what you guys like and what you guys do not like. And if you have any suggestions for topics that you would like me to investigate, to talk about, let me know your suggestions down below. And finally, I guess I will just say these are probably not all of the paths that there are towards authorship, but they are the ones that I have kind of noticed and been able to identify. If you know of any others, I would also love to hear those, because I like pattern finding. So anyway, that is all for today. I hope you have a great week, and until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Don't die.